The first thing you know is the cold. It is not the sharp bite of a winter wind, but the deep, bone-felt chill of a world without a constant fire. It is still dark, a thick, velvety blackness that presses in on all sides, so complete that opening your eyes makes no difference. But your body, tuned to a rhythm older than any clock, knows that the sun is still a long way from rising. And the embers in the hearth are waiting. You lie still for a moment longer, cocooned in a pocket of precious, shared warmth. Beside you, the solid, sleeping form of your husband, John, is a steady presence. His breath is a slow, deep current in the profound silence. On a smaller straw pallet near the hearth, your son, Thomas, breathes in softer, quicker sighs, lost in the untroubled sleep of a child. The air you breathe is thick with the familiar sense of your life, the faint, greasy aroma of lanolin from the wool blankets, the lingering ghost of wood smoke that has seeped into the very fabric of the cottage, and the honest, earthy smell of the packed dirt floor beneath you. You pull the rough blanket a little closer to your chin. It's woven from your own spun thread, a comfort you created with your own hands, yet it offers little real defense against the persistent cold that seeps up from the ground and through the wattle and daub walls of your home. There is no sound from the world outside, no rumble of wagons, no distant bells. The village sleeps as one, a collection of quiet heartbeats under a vast, dark sky. But the cold is a patient messenger, and it brings a clear, urgent duty. The fire, the heart of your small world, cannot be allowed to die. The thought of having to strike a new spark from flint and steel in this damp chill, the frustrating, painstaking work of it, is enough to make you move. Every moment you wait, the few remaining embers in the hearth cool a little more, their life force fading back into ash. Slowly, carefully, you begin to untangle yourself from the warmth. You slide your legs from beneath the heavy blanket, moving with a practiced stillness so as not to wake John. The instant your bare feet touch the floor, the cold is no longer a passive presence but a sharp, biting reality. It shoots up through the solace of your feet, a jolt that wakes you more fully than any sound could. You pause, letting your eyes adjust to a darkness they will never truly pierce. You do not need to see. You navigate this space by memory and touch, a map etched into your mind. You rise to a low crouch, your hand brushing against the rough surface of the wall for balance. The wall feels cool and slightly damp, a mixture of woven hazel branches, mud, and straw. You can feel the uneven texture, the reality of your shelter. One shuffling step, then another. Your bare feet know every dip and rise in the earthen floor. Your outstretched hand finds the corner of the simple, hewn wood table, its surface still sticky from last night's meal. You move around it, your senses guiding you through the geography of your home until you are kneeling on the stone slab that marks the edge of the central hearth. Here, the air is slightly warmer, carrying the faintest memory of yesterday's heat. You reach for the pile of kindling you prepared before sleep claimed you, your fingers finding the familiar shapes of dried twigs and split logs in the dark. It's a ritual, this preparation. A promise made to the future, to the person you would be in the morning. Leaning forward, you gently blow across the surface of the ash pit. A small cloud of gray dust rises, carrying the bitter scent of old fires. You blow again, a longer, steadier breath, your face close to the ground. For a heart-stopping moment, there is nothing. Then, a tiny, miraculous spark of orange glows in the deep gray, no bigger than a ladybird. It is weak, fragile, but it is alive. Quickly, but with immense care, you place a piece of dried moss, your best tinder, directly beside the glowing ember. You cup your hands around it, creating a small cave, and blow again. Not a gust, but a gentle, focused whisper of air, coaxing the life back into the heart of your home. The ember brightens, the orange spreads to the super-dry moss, which begins to smolder, releasing a thin curl of sharp-smelling smoke. You add a few slivers of wood, the thinnest you have, placing them like a tiny nest. And then, it happens. A flicker. A tiny, hesitant tongue of yellow flame leaps into existence, wavering as if uncertain. You hold your breath, watching it. It licks at the wood, catches, and then grows, a small, dancing spot of light in the overwhelming darkness. A sigh of relief escapes your lips, visible for a moment in the chilled air. The day is saved. The cold will be beaten back. You add a few more sticks, and the fire strengthens, the circle of light expanding. It pushes the shadows back, revealing the familiar outlines of your life, the curve of the iron cauldron hanging from its hook, the sleeping forms of your family, their faces peaceful and unknowing. For a moment, you just kneel there, the keeper of the flame, watching the light flicker across the faces you love. This is your first task of the day, your most important victory, and in the quiet solitude of the pre-dawn you have won. The fire is your anchor in the darkness, a living, breathing thing now. It crackles and spits, sending bright orange sparks dancing up towards the smoke hole in the thatched roof. The small circle of light it casts is warm and reassuring, pushing the deep, cold shadows into the corners of the room. Its heat begins to permeate the space, not with the overwhelming force of a furnace, but as a gentle, spreading comfort that slowly unknots the chill from your bones. You stay kneeling before it for another moment, feeling the warmth on your face and hands, a small act of worship to this daily miracle. But the fire is not just for warmth. It is for sustenance. Your stomach, which has been a tight, cold knot, now begins to stir with a dull ache of hunger. It is time to break the fast. You rise and move towards the corner where the water buckets stand. The water you drew from the well yesterday is icy cold, and a thin film of ice has formed on its surface. You crack it with the back of your hand and scoop a ladleful into the heavy iron cauldron. The pot is black with years of soot, its surface seasoned by countless meals. It is heavy, a familiar weight in your hands as you hook its handle over the iron bar suspended above the flames. The pot settles into place, and the fire licks at its rounded belly. Next, you turn to your small store of food. There is no pantry, only a rough wooden chest that keeps the worst of the damp and the mice away from your precious supplies. You lift the heavy lid, and the scent of dry grains and earth fills the air. You scoop a handful of coarse ground oats, and another of barley from their respective linen sacks. This is the foundation of almost every meal, the bulk that will fill your bellies and fuel your bodies for the work ahead. You find a shriveled onion, its skin like dry paper, and a few wrinkled carrots left over from the autumn harvest, their sweetness long faded. It is not much, but it is enough. You chop them roughly on a wooden board, the rhythmic thud of the knife a soft, percussive sound in the quiet cottage. You tip the grains and vegetables into the pot. The water is beginning to warm, and a gentle hiss rises as they meet. You give it a stir with a long wooden spoon, its handle worn smooth by your own hand. And now you wait. The process is slow, governed by the heat of the fire and the nature of the grain. You sit on a low stool, your back to the wall, and listen. The first sound is a low hum from the pot, which gradually builds into a soft, rhythmic bubbling, plop, plop, plop. It is one of the most comforting sounds you know, a promise of food, a promise of life. The steam begins to rise, carrying the simple, wholesome scent of cooking grains and onion, a smell that slowly fills the small room, weaving itself into the ever-present aroma of wood smoke. This gentle symphony of sound and scent is the day's first true announcement. It is what finally stirs your family. First, it is Thomas. A small rustle from his palate, a sleepy sigh. He sits up, rubbing his eyes with his fists, his hair a wild tangle. He sees the fire, smells the pottage, and a small, sleepy smile touches his lips. He doesn't speak, but shuffles over to you, climbing into your lap and leaning his warm, heavy head against your chest, his eyes fixed on the mesmerizing dance of the flames. You wrap an arm around him, pulling your shared blanket over his small shoulders, and continue to stir the pot with your free hand. A few minutes later, John wakes. There is no sound, just a shift in the presence beside you. You feel his weight move as he sits up on the edge of the mattress. He runs a hand through his tangled hair and over his bearded face, his movements slow and deliberate. His eyes meet yours across the flickering firelight. No words are exchanged, none are needed. In that single, shared glance, the morning is acknowledged, the day's work understood, the quiet partnership reaffirmed. He rises, stretches his arms high above his head with a deep groan that speaks of tired muscles and a body ready for another day of labor, and pulls on his simple tunic and leggings. The pottage has thickened now into a rich, bubbling porridge. It is ready. You carefully lift the heavy pot from the hook and set it on the stone hearth. John sets out 3 wooden bowls and 3 wooden spoons on the small table. You ladle the steaming, grayish mixture into each one. There is no ceremony. This is not a meal for conversation or lingering. It is fuel. You sit together on the bench, Thomas nestled between you and John. The only sounds are the scraping of spoons against wood and the soft sounds of eating. You lift the first spoonful to your lips. It is hot, almost too hot, but the warmth is welcome. The texture is coarse, the grains of barley and oats still distinct, not a smooth, uniform gruel. It is bland to a modern palate, seasoned only with the slight sweetness of the onion and the earthy memory of the carrots. There is no sugar, no spice beyond what you might grow in your own small garden, yet it is deeply satisfying. It is solid, real. Each spoonful is a small victory against the hunger that is a constant, quiet companion to your life. You eat in a shared, comfortable silence, the 3 of you bound together in this simple ritual. You watch John eat, his movements efficient, his focus entirely on the bowl. You watch Thomas, who eats with the unthinking gusto of a growing child, a small smear of pottage already on his cheek. This meal is a reminder of your precarious security. The grain in the chest is a measure of your wealth, a buffer between your family and starvation. Every spoonful is a testament to last year's harvest, a prayer for the one to come. You are connected in this moment to the earth that grew the grain, to the rain that watered it, and to the sun that ripened it. As you scrape the last of the pottage from your wooden bowl, the warmth spreads through you. It's a simple meal, but it is everything. What simple food or drink brings you this kind of quiet comfort in your own morning? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments. You set the empty bowl down. The fire crackles. The day has truly begun. The bowl is empty, the spoon is clean, and the quiet warmth of the pottage has settled deep within you. John gives your shoulder a brief, firm squeeze before taking his tools and heading out towards the Lord's fields, his heavy boots making soft thuds on the dirt path. His day is one of long furrows and heavy labor under the reeve's watchful eye. Your day, however, unfolds here in the spaces he leaves behind. Thomas is now occupied with a smooth stone and a piece of charcoal, happily scratching patterns in the dirt near the doorway. For you, the world just outside that door is calling. You push aside the heavy woolen cloth that serves as a draft excluder and unlatch the wooden door. It swings inward with a familiar, groaning creak, and the morning rushes in to greet you. The air is different out here. It's cool and clean, washed by the night and laced with the scent of damp earth, wet leaves, and the faint, sweet smell of distant wood smoke from your neighbor's chimneys. The light is soft and gray, the sun still a low, gentle presence behind a thin veil of morning mist that clings to the hollows of the village. Your eyes, accustomed to the flickering firelight, take a moment to adjust to the vast open canvas of the new day. The world is painted in muted tones of green, brown, and gray, a quiet palette that is both peaceful and full of life. From across the way, you hear the first rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer, a steady, metallic heartbeat that will provide a percussive backdrop to the entire day. A dog barks, sharp and sudden, and is answered by another farther down the lane. These are the sounds of your village waking, a community stirring to life, each family beginning the endless, repeating cycle of tasks that define their existence. You step out, your bare feet sinking slightly into the soft, cool earth just outside your door. The dew is heavy on the sparse blades of grass, and each droplet is a tiny, perfect jewel, catching the growing light. This small patch of land, this garden, is your domain. It is called a toft in the language of the manor court, a piece of ground tied to your cottage, but to you, it is simply the good earth. It is your responsibility, your larder, and in many ways your quiet sanctuary. It is not beautiful in the way a lord's flower garden might be. There are no ornamental blooms, no grand designs. Its beauty is in its utility, its promise of sustenance. Your eyes scan the plot with a practiced, critical gaze. The broad, waxy leaves of the cabbages are unfurling handsomely, their surfaces beaded with moisture. The sturdy green shoots of onions and leeks stand in determined rows, a testament to the careful planting you did weeks ago. In the corner, a tangle of pea vines, their delicate tendrils reaching out, are just beginning to climb the rough lattice of twigs you built for them. Closest to the cottage door is your herb patch, a dense collection of green that is the heart of your kitchen's flavor and medicine. You kneel down, the dampness of the soil seeping into the rough fabric of your dress. You run your fingers gently over the silvery, downy leaves of a sage bush. You pinch a tiny piece from the end of a sprig and rub it between your thumb and forefinger. An immediate, sharp, and cleansing scent fills the air, a smell that speaks of winter stews and remedies for a sore throat. Beside it, the woody stems of thyme creep along the ground, and a small, struggling rosemary bush offers its pine-like fragrance. This knowledge of herbs, passed from your mother to you, is a quiet power. It is the knowledge of how to soothe a fever, how to make a tough piece of meat palatable, how to keep sickness from the door. Today's task is weeding. It is always weeding. The wild, tenacious life of the earth is always seeking to reclaim this small, cultivated space. You focus on the onion patch where a carpet of tiny, opportunistic green shoots has appeared almost overnight. You lower yourself to sit on the ground, tucking your feet beneath you. You don't use a tool. Your hands are your best instruments for this delicate work. You press your fingers into the cool, dark, crumbly soil, feeling for the roots. The earth gives way easily, still soft from the night's moisture. You identify a patch of chickweed, its leaves small and bright. You work your fingers around it, loosening the soil, ensuring you get the entire root system. There is a deep, quiet satisfaction in the small, tearing sound as the weed comes free from the earth, its pale roots dangling. You toss it aside onto a growing pile. This work is slow, meditative. Your mind is focused, but also free to wander. You think of the coming seasons, wondering if the peas will be plentiful this year. You worry about the letter from the bishop, read aloud by the priest last Sunday, demanding yet another tax. Your hands move automatically, one weed after another, your body locked in a rhythm of pulling, shaking the soil loose, and discarding. This is not the back-breaking, soul-crushing labor of the harvest in the Lord's great fields, work you must perform as part of your family's obligation. This is different. This work is for your own table. The food grown here belongs to you. Every onion pulled from this ground is one your family will eat, its flavor a direct result of your own care. This small plot is a measure of your independence, a tiny island of autonomy in a world where so much of your life is dictated by others. The health of your husband, the strength of your growing son, is tied directly to the diligence you show in these quiet morning hours. As you work, the sun finally climbs above the distant trees, and its light streams down into the village. The mist dissolves into thin air, and the world sharpens. The greens of the leaves become more vibrant, the brown of the earth richer. The warmth begins to soak into your back and shoulders, a pleasant weight. An elderly neighbor, Agnes, walks slowly down the path, her back bent from a lifetime of labor. She offers a quiet nod and a "God give you good day," and you return the greeting without pausing in your work. It is a small exchange, a simple thread in the social fabric of the village, a recognition that you are both engaged in the same timeless tasks. You finish the row of onions, sitting back on your heels to survey your work. The dark, clean soil is now clear around the base of the green shoots, giving them space to breathe and grow. A small sense of accomplishment warms you, as real and pleasant as the sun on your back. The sun climbs higher, warming your back as you work. The herbs are tended, the weeds pulled, but now a new task calls. The water buckets by the door are nearly empty, and the pottage for the midday meal will need more than the morning dew can offer. It is time to make the journey to the heart of our small world, the place where all paths and all stories cross, the village well. You rise from the garden, brushing the dark, rich soil from your hands and knees. The sun is higher now, its warmth a pleasant weight on your shoulders, and the simple act of standing and stretching your back sends a ripple of awareness through your body. It is a body accustomed to work, but it still feels the morning's labor. You call to Thomas, who is still engrossed with his charcoal stick, and he scrambles inside the cottage, content to be near the remaining warmth of the fire. Your task lies elsewhere. You walk to the door and pick up the 2 wooden buckets. They are heavy even when empty, solid things made of oak and bound with hoops of iron from the blacksmith's forge. The rope handles are worn smooth and dark from the grip of your hands, day after day, year after year. Holding them, one in each hand, feels as natural as breathing. The journey to the well is not long, but it takes you through the very heart of your world. You step out onto the main track that winds through the village, a path that is less a road and more a wide, rutted ribbon of earth. After the last rain, it was a treacherous mire of thick, sticky mud, but a few days of sun have baked it hard in most places, and your bare feet tread carefully on the uneven, sun-cracked clay. You pass your neighbors' cottages, each one a slight variation of your own. Smoke curls from their smoke holes, a sign of life within. Outside one, a few chickens scratch hopefully in the dirt, their movements quick and jerky. From another you hear the rhythmic, hypnotic thump-thump of a loom, a sound that tells you Mary is already hard at work on the cloth that will pay their tax to the manor. Her cottage leans slightly to one side, its daub cracked and in need of repair, a silent testament to a family with too many children and too little time. As you walk, your gaze lifts from the path before you. Looming over the humble thatched roofs of the village is the church. It is the only building for miles made entirely of stone. It seems to have grown from the earth, solid and eternal. Its walls are thick and gray, its windows are narrow slits, and its bell tower, though not grand, reaches higher than any other structure, a constant, silent reminder of God's authority and the priest's power over your soul. You make a small, almost unconscious sign of the cross as you pass it. On the low hill that rises behind the church, you can just see the manor house. It is distant, a different world. It is built of timber and stone, and on a clear day like today, you can see the sun glinting off the small glass. Panes in its windows, glass. It is a luxury as remote and unattainable as the life of the lord and lady who live there. Your world is here, below, in the cluster of mud and wood cottages, under the shadow of those two great forces, the church and the Lord. You are drawn forward not just by your task, but by a familiar sound that grows louder with each step. It is a symphony of noises, the steady, complaining creak of the well's wooden windlass, the sharp splash of a bucket hitting water far below, and weaving through it all, the gentle, constant murmur of women's voices. The well is the village's true center, its beating pulse. As you round a bend, you see it. A low, circular wall of moss-covered stones surrounds the deep, dark shaft that plunges into the earth. The ground all around it is a permanent patch of mud, slick and treacherous from centuries of spilled water. A half-dozen other women are already there. You know them all? Young Edith, her face still full of the hope of a new marriage, laughs at something old Elspeth has said, her voice bright and clear. Elspeth, whose face is a roadmap of wrinkles and whose eyes hold the wisdom of 80 winters, simply smiles a knowing, toothless smile. Mary is there too, her baby balanced on one hip, while her eldest daughter, barely older than your Thomas, struggles to help her with a heavy bucket. You offer a nod, a shared glance of solidarity that needs no words. Greetings are exchanged in low voices, a soft chorus of good morning, and the sun is warm today. This is not a place for loud talk. It is a place of quiet communion. You set your empty buckets down and take your place in the informal queue, leaning against the stone wall to wait. This is where the news is shared, the true stories of the village told. In hushed tones, you learn that the Reeve was in a foul temper yesterday, that the baker's wife is expecting another child, that a fox took 2 of Widow Helen's chickens in the night. It is a tapestry woven from threads of gossip, genuine concern, practical information, and quiet support. When Edith mentions her husband's cough, Elspeth murmurs a suggestion of boiled thyme and honey without even looking at her. When Mary sighs with exhaustion, another woman pats her arm gently. It is a subtle, powerful network, a web of shared female experience that holds the community together in ways the men, with their talk of crops and tithes, might never understand. Here at the well, you hear the threads of every story in the village. It's a place of work, but also of connection. In our busy modern world, where do you find your community? Is there a place where you feel that same sense of shared experience? Let us know below. Finally, it is your turn. You step onto the slick stones, taking up the thick, damp rope. You release the crank's catch, and the bucket plummets into the darkness, the rope hissing as it uncoils. You listen for the distant, hollow thump and satisfying splash that tells you it has reached the water. Then the real work begins. You lean your weight into the crank handle, and the windlass begins its slow, groaning turn. The muscles in your arms, shoulders, and back tense and burn with the effort. It is a deep, familiar ache. The rope tightens, dripping water onto the stones below, and slowly, painstakingly, the heavy bucket is drawn up from the depths. It emerges into the light, brimming with clear, cold, life-giving water. With careful movements, you guide it to the stone ledge and tip its contents into your own 2 buckets. You repeat the process, your breath coming in short, sharp bursts. The journey home is a different kind of challenge. The buckets, now full, are immensely heavy. The water sloshes, threatening to spill with every uneven step. You must change your posture, leaning back slightly, your arms straight and locked, letting your whole body absorb the strain. Your focus narrows to the path directly in front of you, your world shrinking to the simple, urgent goal of getting this precious water home without losing a drop. When you finally reach your own doorway and set the buckets down with a heavy thud, a wave of relief washes over you. The chore is done. You have brought back not just water for the day's needs, but the pulse of the village itself. The midday meal was simple and swift, a hunk of dark, heavy bread and a small piece of hard cheese, eaten while standing. It was enough to quell the gnawing in your stomach and restore a measure of strength. John would not return from the fields until dusk, and Thomas, his own small bellyful, has now curled up on the straw, pallet by the hearth, succumbing to the quiet lull of the afternoon and drifting into a deep sleep. The cottage is filled with a profound silence, broken only by the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of your child. This is your time. A time for a different kind of work, one that is both labor and meditation. You carry your small, 3-legged stool to the one place in the cottage where the afternoon light is best, the open doorway. The sun, now high in the sky, doesn't stream directly in, but it fills the world outside with a bright, clear light that reflects into your home, illuminating the dust motes that dance in the still air. You sit, your back straight, your posture one learned over countless hours of this same task. From a basket beside you, you retrieve your tools. First, the spindle. It is a simple thing of wood, a slender shaft with a carved notch at the top and a round, flat disc, the whorl at the bottom. It is worn smooth with use, its surface polished to a soft sheen by the oils of your hands. It feels like an extension of your own body, familiar and perfectly balanced. Then you take up the wool. It is not the clean, white fleece of stories, but a bundle of raw, unwashed fibers, still clotted with dirt and bits of dried leaves. It smells strongly of the sheep it came from, a greasy animal scent underpinned by the unmistakable aroma of lanolin. This natural oil, while making the wool feel slightly sticky, is a blessing. It helps the fibers cling together and makes the spinning process smoother. You tease out a long, thin piece from the bundle, a process called drafting. Your fingers work with a gentle, knowing touch, pulling and loosening the compacted fibers until you have a soft, airy roving about the thickness of your thumb. You lick your fingers and twist one end of the roving into a point, hooking it securely into the notch at the top of your spindle. Now the magic begins. You let the spindle hang, suspended by this fragile thread of wool. With a quick, practiced flick of your wrist, you set it spinning. The whirl at the bottom acts as a flywheel, its weight and momentum keeping the spindle turning in a steady, hypnotic rotation. As it spins, it twists the fibers of the wool. This is the heart of the craft, the transformation of a loose, weak mass of fluff into a strong, unified thread. Your left hand holds the roving high, while your right hand gently pinches and pulls, feeding just the right amount of fiber into the twist. Too little, and the thread will be thin and weak, likely to snap. Too much, and it will be thick and lumpy, useless for weaving fine cloth. It is a delicate dance, a conversation between your hands, the wool, and the spinning spindle. The spindle sings its quiet song, a low, soft hum that fills the silence of the cottage. It is a sound as old as time, a sound your mother made and her mother before her. As a length of new thread is spun, you pause the spindle's rotation, unhook the thread from the notch, and wind it carefully around the shaft, building up a neat, tight cone of yarn called a cop. Then you hook the thread back into the notch, leaving a length free, and with another flick of your wrist, you set the spindle dancing once more. Draft, spin, wind, draft, spin, wind. The rhythm takes over, and your hands move without conscious thought. This is when your mind is free to wander. The repetitive, gentle motion of your hands untethers your thoughts, allowing them to drift like seeds on the wind. You think of the coming winter. The thread you are spinning now will need to be woven into cloth to patch John S. tunic, which is wearing thin at the elbows. Thomas has grown so quickly. He will need a new woolen shirt before the first frost, or he will suffer from the cold. You picture the family's clothes in your mind, taking a silent inventory of every tear and thin patch, calculating how much thread you will need, how many hours of spinning it will take. This work is not a choice, it is a necessity. Without this thread, your family would face the winter in rags. Your thoughts drift from the practical to the personal. You remember sitting at your own mother's feet, watching her spindle dance just like this. You remember the frustration of your first attempts, the lumpy, uneven thread you produced, and her patient, calloused hands guiding your own. She taught you that a good spinner puts her thoughts into the thread. If you are angry, the thread will be tight and brittle. If you are sad, it will be uneven. But if you are calm and steady, the thread will be strong and true. You look at the thread you are spinning now. It is smooth, consistent, a good thread. You wonder what Thomas is dreaming of as he sleeps. You hope his life will be easier than yours, that he will know less hunger and less hardship. It is a foolish hope, perhaps, but one you spin into the thread alongside the wool. This craft is more than just clothing your family. It is a small but vital piece of the village economy, and it is entirely in your hands. The Lord takes a share of the grain John harvests, the church takes its tithe, but this thread is yours. If you are diligent and the sheep were generous with their fleece this year, you might produce more thread than your family needs. This surplus can be taken to market. It can be bartered for something you cannot make yourself, a small iron pot, a handful of precious salt, perhaps even a colored ribbon for your hair. It is a tiny stream of income, but it is yours to control. This spindle, this simple piece of wood, represents a small measure of power, a quiet form of independence in a world that offers you very little of either. It is the currency of women, spun in quiet afternoons, in the precious, peaceful hours between other, more demanding chores. The thread grows longer and longer, winding around the spindle like the hours of the day. The sun, once directly overhead, now begins its slow descent towards the western woods. Its light softens, turning from bright white to a warmer gold, and it casts long shadows from the doorway. This change in the light is a silent bell, telling you that the day's final chapter of work is about to begin. The change in light is your signal. The golden hue flooding the doorway is softer now, the shadows it casts longer and deeper, stretching like grasping fingers across the earthen floor. The afternoon's quiet, meditative rhythm is over. You carefully wind the last length of spun thread onto your spindle and place it gently back into its basket. The day's spinning is done. A new set of tasks, ancient and ritualistic, now calls to you as the world outside prepares for the coming of the night. Thomas stirs from his sleep, awakened not by a sound, but by this same intrinsic shift in the day's energy. He sits up, blinking in the warm, dimming light, and you give him a reassuring smile before stepping outside. The air has lost its midday warmth and now carries a distinct evening chill. You take a small cloth bag and walk, not towards the village, but towards the small copse of trees that marks the edge of the Lord's woods. You are not permitted to hunt here, nor to chop down trees for firewood, but the forgotten offerings of the forest floor are a different matter. It is a quiet understanding, a small concession to the constant, gnawing hunger of the village. You walk with a practiced eye, your gaze scanning the damp, mossy ground at the base of the ancient oak trees. The scent of decaying leaves and rich, dark earth is thick in the air. Birds are singing their final, frantic songs before settling into the silence of the night. And there, in a damp hollow near a rotting log, you see them, a small cluster of pale, flat-topped mushrooms. You know the ones to look for, the knowledge passed down from your mother just as surely as the skill of spinning. You gently pluck them from the earth, their gills delicate against your fingertips, and place them carefully in your bag. A little farther on, a thorny bush offers up a handful of late-season blackberries. Shriveled but still holding a deep, wine-dark sweetness, it is not a feast, but it is a treasure. A touch of wildness and flavor for the evening pot. Returning to your cottage, you begin the ritual of securing your small domain for the night. Your handful of chickens are pecking at the last insects of the day. You call to them with a low, clucking sound, and they come running, their heads bobbing. You shoo them into their small, three-sided coop against the cottage wall, fastening a sturdy wooden plank across the opening. It wouldn't stop a determined fox, but it is enough to make them feel secure. Next, you walk to the small patch of grass where your family's goat is tethered. She is a placid, bearded creature, and her milk is a vital nourishment for Thomas. You untie her rope, and she follows you willingly, her hooves making soft clicking sounds on the path. She will spend the night inside the cottage with you. The warmth from her body will help heat the small space, and more importantly, she will be safe from predators, both animal and human. Inside, the cottage is growing darker. The fire, which has been gently smoldering all afternoon, now needs to be built up for the evening meal and the long, cold night ahead. You add larger pieces of wood, and the flames leap up eagerly, casting a vibrant, dancing light that fills the room once more. Thomas, now fully awake, watches you, his face glowing in the firelight. You hand him the small bundle of mushrooms to wash in a bowl of water while you take down the cauldron once more. Tonight's meal will be heartier than this morning's. Into the pot goes the water, the grain, the last of the onions. But tonight you add the precious mushrooms, sliced and earthy. And from a small cloth bundle hanging from the rafters, you take a piece of salted pork, hard and dry. With your knife, you shave thin slivers of it into the pot. As the slivers hit the hot iron, they sizzle and spit, releasing a rich, savory aroma that instantly transforms the smell of the cottage. It is the smell of a proper supper, a reward at the day's end. The smell promises fat and flavor, a deep comfort that goes beyond simple sustenance. You stir the pot, the aromas mingling and deepening, and a sense of profound peace begins to settle over you. It is in this moment, as the stew bubbles and the fire roars, that you hear his footsteps. They are unmistakable. Not the quick, light steps of a child or the careful tread of a neighbor, but the slow, heavy, weary sound of John returning from the fields. The door swings open, and he is there, silhouetted against the last vestiges of the deep purple twilight. He seems to fill the entire doorway. His shoulders are slumped with fatigue, and his face and arms are streaked with the dirt of the Lord's earth. He doesn't speak as he enters, but his eyes find yours, and in that shared look is a whole day's story of hardship, endurance, and the simple relief of returning home. He sets his tools by the door and walks to the basin of water you have set out for him. As he washes the grime from his hands and face, the water turning gray in the bowl, you ladle the thick, steaming stew into your family's 3 bowls. Thomas carries the spoons. The simple table is set. You sit down together, the 3 of you, in the small, warm circle of firelight. The darkness outside is now complete. The world beyond your door has become a place of deep shadows and unknown sounds, a wild, untamed place where ancient fears stir. But in here, in this small, smoky room, there is safety, there is sanctuary. You lift your spoon. The stew is thick and rich, the salt of the pork a wonderful shock against the blandness of the grain. The mushrooms are tender and have a deep, earthy taste, a memory of the woods. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful. The exhaustion of the day, the ache in your back from the garden, the weariness in John's eyes, it all seems to lessen with each warm spoonful. This is the purpose of it all. The endless work, the small struggles, all lead to this moment, the family gathered, the door barred against the night, and a hot meal in your bellies. Sharing this meal in the warm glow of the fire, the day's hardships seem to melt away. This feeling of sanctuary, of being safe with loved ones as darkness falls, is timeless. If you've enjoyed this journey into the past, please consider subscribing for more quiet histories. Your support allows us to continue creating these moments of peace. The bowls are soon empty, scraped clean. A deep, quiet contentment settles over your small family. The day is done. You are home. You are safe. The bowls are empty, the stories have been told in quiet murmurs, and a deep, peaceful weariness has settled over your small family. John is already asleep, his heavy breathing a steady rhythm in the room. Thomas lies beside him, lost to the world. Your final task awaits. You move to the hearth where the fire has burned down to glowing, red-hearted logs. With a long stick, you gently push the embers together into a tight mound, then carefully cover them with a thick blanket of ash from the edge of the hearth. This is an act of faith, a prayer that a tiny spark of life will survive the long, cold hours until dawn. The bright, dancing light is extinguished, plunging the cottage into a deep, velvety darkness, lit only by the faintest memory of a glow. Before you surrender to sleep, a familiar impulse calls to you. You lift the heavy bar from the door and pull it open just a crack, stepping out into the profound silence of the night. The cold air is sharp and clean, a startling contrast to the warm, smoky air of the cottage. You tilt your head back, and you forget to breathe. The sky above you is not black. It is a riot of brilliant, piercing light. Without a single lamp or candle to challenge it, the darkness becomes a perfect canvas for the cosmos. The stars are not faint, distant specks. They are sharp, ferocious diamonds, so numerous and bright that they seem to jostle for space. And across the entire dome of the sky, a great, luminous cloud is spilled like a river of milk a-shimmering. Textured path of light that you know is made of countless more stars, too far to be seen alone. It is a sight of such overwhelming beauty and scale that it makes your own life, your own small worries about harvests and taxes, feel tiny and transient. In this moment, you are not just a woman in a small village. You are a part of this immense, silent, glittering whole. You step back inside, the breathtaking image of the heavens seared into your mind. You slide the heavy bar back into place, sealing your small sanctuary against the vast night. You lie down on the straw pallet, the familiar rustle a comforting sound. You pull the coarse wool blanket up to your chin, feeling the warmth from John's sleeping form beside you. A deep, bone-weary fatigue settles into your limbs, a heavy, welcome weight. The day's work is done. You close your eyes, listening to the quiet breathing of your family, and drift away on the gentle tide of a well-earned sleep.